Hello, folks, and welcome to Film Optimist, where we talk about all things film with a healthy dose of optimism. I'm a co-host, Seth Boyd.
And I am Megan Tierney.
And today, folks, we're doing something a little different. I'm excited about this. We might come up with a better name for this series of episodes. For now, we're going to call this Reanalysis. A friend of mine and a listener to podcasts recommended a movie that Megan and I had seen before and didn't particularly care for. It just didn't jive with us. And we both, were talking about it. Like, it might be interesting to rewatch this, but what might be more interesting is to talk to somebody who really likes it and not necessarily have a debate, because I certainly wasn't thinking this was a bad movie. It just didn't necessarily work for me. I think that was your experience as well, Megan.
That's
And
definitely the vibe. Yeah.
right, and I know why I'm acting like it's a big reveal. The episode title is going to have the movie in it. The movie's Drive, folks. It's 2011 Nicholas Winding's Friends name I just butchered, Drive, and a movie that's beloved by a lot of people. And Trenton is our guest, Trenton Cressey, good friend of mine who is taking this assignment very seriously and is behind the wheel of his car, making the case for Drive today. So welcome to the show, Trenton.
Thank you. It's phenomenal to be here.
Thank you so much. I think if you don't mind, Megan, I'd like to hear your thoughts on what you first thought of when you saw this, how you saw this, and
Sure.
just do that, and then we're going to hear the pitch. Trenton.
Yes, I'm excited for Trenton's piece to be honest. But yes, so I should preface this. I saw this not in full. I saw like snippets of this. I think this is a very this is another one of those like filmmaker movies that if you're kind of into the genre at all, if you're studying it in school, you may get like recommended this. I think that at the time that I saw clips, I also saw like clips, I should say, certainly not the whole movie, but I'm sure everybody in this in our little Zoom here is a Ryan Gosling fan,
yes.
And I certainly was at the time. So that's probably how it came into my life, to be honest. And then I knew also about its cinematography. I had seen like clips of it on YouTube, and that's what kind of drew my eye in. So I had seen like as much as I could see for free, basically, without seeing this movie. Which I do a lot, especially as a young kid, pre-streaming era and everything. So I watched it as a Ryan. Yeah, exactly. So I watched this as a Ryan Gosling stan, and I was just a little, I guess, confused a bit as to his character. Rewatching it, I want to hear Trenton's take. I sort of feel the same. He was the word that I used in my little note taking was that he felt a little emotionally constipated, and this whole movie did for me as well. Not that I really need a big like big display of emotions, like kind of of course that doesn't really yield well to film, and I think Ryan Gosling is a very like subtly emotional actor, I would say. But this just felt very specific, which I think is both a pro and con of this movie, which I'm sure we're going to talk about later. So that's my kind of take spiel on it. And Seth, I know we talked about it too, but I'd like to hear
so I watched it when it came out, but I was an asshole and I pirated it, so I probably didn't have the best sound quality or anything, which the sound is a major component of this movie. And the cinematography is great in this movie. And I remember just kind of feeling like that's it, like because like the people who loved it really, really wanted to tell you about how great it was. And I'll confess, my tastes in movies have evolved a lot since then. I'm fine with a movie that has a morally ambiguous plot, character. I'm okay with a mostly silent protagonist. Those aren't mistakes by any means. And I think for a lot of people who watch this movie, this is kind of, I think I like about it is it's a gateway movie to like other things, I think, because it is a action star, or it's a American star. He's Canadian actually, but a Hollywood guy. So like, people are going to watch this and look into other things and be more open to other things. I think it's kind of similar to an Inception. Like a lot of people had their minds blown by Inception because they went to go see the movie directed by the guy who directed The Dark Knight. Not because they were really big into sci-fi necessarily, but like they knew that name. And again, I actually like Inception, but I think it's not the greatest sci-fi movie of all time that someone who maybe was introduced to that way wants to tell you that it is. So I was a little like, I think somewhat disappointed. Like I didn't think it was there were mistakes in it and everything. It just didn't jive with me. And I think we'll get not to tease, Trenton, Megan and I will get a little bit more of our reanalysis or thoughts on afterwards. But I think my big question that I had when I first watched it was like, was there a major thing that I missed in this? Was there like a symbolism that I didn't catch, or a plot device that I missed, or something like that? Which maybe, I was 19, I was probably drunk, but yeah, just left me a little underwhelmed compared to the praise it was getting, but by no means a bad movie. So with that being said, you've heard our initial thoughts from 11 years ago or so.
Yeah.
So partially this is also going off memory here, but Trenton, tell us about this movie. You told a little bit to me about how you came to this movie, which is interesting. If you wouldn't mind mentioning that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, what I want to say is that for people who don't like it, I get it. Like, there's no such thing as a wrong opinion, obviously, and everybody has a different take on it. And for me, it seems obvious why people generally would have a distaste for the movie, because of a couple of things, which I'll talk about in a little bit. But I just want to say that first off is like, I get that I am the weird one for liking this movie. I mean, I'm not the only one. I've talked to a lot of people who love it, but it definitely, you have to be sort of ready for it to be maybe an acquired taste. I don't know, but yeah, I loved it from the first, and I think part of that might be because of how I got into it, or how I found it, which was, I was not a film major or anything in college, but I took a film class because I found this loophole where for the foreign language requirement, you could do foreign language literature and translation, and foreign cinema counted toward this requirement. So I took a Scandinavian film class because I guess since it has subtitles, it counts as foreign literature, and so I didn't have to take a new language. So that's how and I love movies. I've loved movies for a long time. I'm like a sort of I wouldn't say I'm a cinephile, because I feel like that is too pretentious, but
you could say it. We use film, not movies, in our title. We're there, you know.
Film optimist.
Well,
would you call yourself a film optimist, Trenton?
Yeah.
I won't even say the word film. I'll say I'm a movie nerd.
Okay. But that's fine too.
But I was excited about the class, and I hadn't watched a lot of Scandinavian movies. This was actually specifically a Danish film class, which of course Nicholas Winding Refn is Danish. We didn't watch. Actually, no, we did watch one of his movies, but a lot of the movies we watched were kind of like 90s, early 2000s, with the whole Dogma 95 movement. We learned a little bit about that, which was really fun. And we watched some of Refn's older movies, some of the first things he did, like with Mads Mikkelsen. And I thought that was really cool, but it was lower budget, and it's still kind of similar to Drive, kind of like a Danish Scorsese movie, like kind of the underbelly of Denmark or Sweden, like kind of the violence and the seediness of it. It's just like kind of dark, kind of definitely guys' movies, I would say, but like I was really into it, and I really liked the professor. So what happened was, he was going to show us a movie in class, and he pulled it up on his screen on his laptop, and he had like a folder open with all of his torrented movies, and one of them was Drive, and a couple of the film students were like, "Oh, Drive, that's awesome," and he's like, yeah, pirating, whatever. And so I didn't know anything about it, but I was like, okay, well, that's got to be cool, because all of these people reacted that way, and he has it on his computer. So that's how I went into it. I was also a super, I don't know, not a super fan, but I like Ryan Gosling a lot. And so I was going in for that reason. And I think when I was going into it, I was kind of in the sort of film nerd mindset. so I wasn't looking for like a popcorn blockbuster movie, so this is the first problem I think with it that makes it hard to come into the first viewing, is that I think that the way that it seems in advertising, like in trailers or posters or even just shots from the movie, it seems like much more of a fast-paced action thriller kind of.
And there was literally a lawsuit. Someone sued for false advertising because they were expecting to take their kids to go see like the new Fast and the Furious type of movie. And I think this has not been resolved. Actually, I think this is ongoing. I think they keep resuing. That's a whole other story. But yeah, just to confirm your point, yes, definitely. And I don't remember the trailer, but a lot of people certainly were expecting a very different movie.
But the weird thing about it is, I don't know if there's a way to do it without making it seem that way. Because if you just take a short clip or a still from the movie, like that's what it looks like. It has all of the elements, all of the tropes of those kinds of like 80s action, like kind of not really exploitation, but like
And we're going to interrupt you and jump in. I hope that's okay, Trenton. But like, it has like the Miami Vice font, right? And it has, it's a pretty short movie. And it's not like there isn't action scenes. And then the action scenes are pretty intense. But it somehow, and I think we're going to get into this, it somehow feels like a slow movie. And it somehow, to me, feels too slow. And like, on that Drive, I watched Drive My Car the other day. I loved it. That movie is literally 3 hours and not a lot happens in it. So it's like, it's not like I don't like a slow movie. We've talked about Tarkovsky here. With this hour and 40 minutes for whatever reason, with intense, violent action scenes, I was like, too slow. I don't know.
It just certainly may be some intentional misdirect in the trailer. Because I think they wanted butts in the seat to see Ryan Gosling, basically, but also to see this riffing movie, basically.
Right.
Well, I mean, it almost seems like a Malick take on an 80s action movie.
Ooh.
That's a good point. I like
which
that.
is also interesting because there's Ryan Gosling, that connection too. But it's like a slow-paced, poetic action movie, which is, I think, kind of interesting because I did watch Thief, like you told me to, Seth.
Yeah.
and honestly, it kind of takes away from Drive because now it's like, oh, actually, maybe I don't need Drive for this sort of aesthetic and everything. We already had.
I'm glad to hear you say that. And folks, if you don't know, we're talking about Michael Mann's 1981 film Thief, which Megan, are you familiar with this? Have you seen it?
I'm not.
So it's someone told me, like, someone who recommended Thief to me years ago. So like, it's got better electronic music in their opinion. It's Tangerine Dream did the soundtrack, and James Caan is just a lot more interesting of a character to me than Ryan Gosling is. And it's a guy who's a thief. He's also like, he runs a car lot or something, and it's a very stylized, cool, great synth soundtrack movie, but also has some great almost cameos. Like Willie Nelson's in it, and he's really good. You have some great characters playing off type who are really great in it. And so I think Thief exists. And I think that's on the rewatch. I didn't know that when I first watched it. On the rewatch, we have a better version of this, and I don't mind someone trying to remake a good movie in their own way. That's great, and I often enjoy that. But Thief is great. Sorry to derail you there, Trenton.
Well, that actually leads me to the second thing I was going to say about why I think going into it has something that doesn't work for a lot of people, which is Ryan Gosling's performance. And this connects back to Thief because, like you said, the character is similar to what James Caan plays, but in Thief you have a lot more context and backstory. You know everything pretty much about this character and why he is the way that he is. And the way he is, like you said, is very similar to what the driver is, but I think that the mystery behind it is kind of interesting because you have to fill in the gaps. And I think that it is very clear, like watching Ryan Gosling, it's very subdued, very, very kind of, I guess, coy or blank. And it to me feels like someone who is suffering from some kind of trauma, if not PTSD, like James Caan, who's a guy who came out of prison, like basically went in when he was a young kid and didn't come out until he was in like his 30s. And Ryan Gosling's character, I don't know if he seems like he went to prison, but he seems like he came up in a rough part of the town and like
I think you get a feeling he had to run away from something, right? Like we know he just takes the first job offered to him, even though it seems like a shitty job.
And we kind of don't know where he came.
Yeah, where's he from? He doesn't. When asked like, "Are you new in town?" He's like, "No, I've been here a while." He doesn't say I'm from LA. He's not, but like, when did he come? From where?
He doesn't say much. He doesn't say much, to be honest.
And again, that's not a mistake in the movie. I want to be clear. The things that I don't like about it are, I think I like that the movie tries it. I think that's a bold thing to have a voice we're used to hearing, a handsome Hollywood actor barely talking. It's not what we're expecting to pay to see. It kind of we did our Hitchcock episode on Rope recently, and that movie often cuts away from like Jimmy Stewart. You're not expecting that. And I enjoy a movie using a beautiful face in a different way than we expect. Especially like, wasn't he mostly known for rom-coms prior to this?
It was his transition phase, I would say.
Right. It was A Walk to Remember. Was it that one or The Notebook? I haven't seen that. But yeah, sorry. But yeah, this I don't think he didn't. I don't think he's done anything this gritty since his other Friend movie. That's Only God Forgives. But like this was certainly a big pivot for him in his career, if memory serves right.
I would say it felt very director-oriented acting to me. Like I think I could only imagine that he was. The lines are also like we should say like so minimal in this, especially Ryan's. So you're really kind of hanging on the edge of your seat, like anything he says to get something out of his characterization. But I think that's not a mistake. Like that's certainly a choice, and I think it felt very. This whole movie feels stylized to me, but certainly the Ryan's performance felt like a director's performance, if you will, or like
I think you almost can imagine. There's like a stopwatch for how many seconds are you going to pause before you react. How slow is your head going to turn?
Only use half of your face in this shot.
Exactly.
Yeah. I all that to say, I think it was all very calculated. Like, I mean, the whole movie I think was, but certainly his performance was like calculated in that way.
Which I love that part of it, and it kind of feels like some of those auteur directors that Seth and I have talked about in conversation before, like Kubrick, Tarkovsky, like these directors where it's almost like they're painting a picture and like the actors are one of their paintbrushes, and like the movie is it's very much about the aesthetic and the effect that it has on people apart from like the story or the acting or the drama. And it's just like one small element of creating this like visual art form. Although I think that a lot of Drive is about the audio as well.
Yes. Would you mind addressing that, Trent? Because you've long been a big electronic music fan. I feel like I'm 50. I like this new hangled electronic music. I like it, but I don't have any vocabulary for it, so I don't listen to it often because I don't know how to find the shit I like. So you were telling me that this movie was very influential.
I just listen to the Drive soundtrack on repeat every day. That's the thing I listen to.
Well, that's amazing.
No, I mean, I do think that might be very possibly the best part about the movie, which is not good, but I think it's great. One thing that's kind of interesting about it is it basically, like Seth was saying, it like almost created its own genre of music that is on like on Reddit. You go to the Outrun subreddit, which is kind of about this, I guess the other name for it would be synthwave music. And it's not just a music genre, but it's also like a visual art genre. So like they'll have links to certain like music videos or SoundCloud pages and things that have to do with like Drive soundtrack inspired music.
Or like the bisexual lighting stuff. too.
Yeah, it'll have like just like a picture of like a Corvette driving through some neon landscape or something, like just like
Perfect.
things inspired by the aesthetic. And I think it's fun. I think it's really cool. I mean, it's not really original or unique. Like, this is just kind of a recreation of the synth music in the 80s, and like soundtracks like Thief, maybe like American Gigolo. There's a lot of 80s movies that have that same, even kind of Vangelis kind of
like a Blade Runner kind of.
Yeah,
that, and I think you're right. I think that's the soundtrack certainly stuck out to me. I remember the song, I think it's the main song, the Real Hero song, is something like I've listened to constantly since the first time I saw the movie, and like I've always liked that. So the music stays with you, and I think it works really well. But there's a lot of moments in this movie where it just straight up is a music video.
I'm so glad you said that.
Right? and
my only hot take was like, it's filmed like a music video.
And I think like the love story with him and Michelle Williams has like a music video logic of like, there's a pretty boy and a pretty girl, and there's this other guy now, but the guy we saw first is the good guy and he gets the girl kind of thing, even though the other guy's the dad and husband. And but I mean, just like the footage of that song's playing, they're just driving through, that's the LA River, or what is that called?
Yeah.
There. Just like then they're skipping rocks or whatever. Like, this is just a music video. And it's not bad, it's cool actually. But and I think that's also like more so than musical montages, it just something about the aesthetic of it. I think it's because it is a new song and it's a hip thing. It just really feels like these images and this music was envisioned and all planned together, which I don't know if that's the case. I'm not sure if there's any actual original, if any of the songs were original, or if that was just like a soundtrack they compiled.
I thought about that while watching too, just because I knew the first song. I was happy to know that like one song out of there. I heard it at like a concert one time. I Shazammed it because I thought it was cool. Nice. but yeah, I agree with you, Seth. Like, I was really wondering which came first kind of deal with it. And or if that even there was a rhyme. I mean, obviously there was a rhyme or reason to this whole movie, but I wondered if adding it in later contributed to it in a different way, in this feeling that I think we're all like getting at about this movie. Right. I think it's like so specific, so it was pretty like well thought out actually.
Yes.
It basically initiated like that sort of revitalization, I guess.
Yes. That's cool. A good way of saying it.
I mean, that's certainly significant, and I love when a movie accomplishes something like that. That's not even on my radar. Very cool. So, and I should tell for viewers, I was very grateful prior to us watching it. Trenton did email us more or less his pitch with some things to consider, and like a little bit of his context, what works, what doesn't, and some of the stuff he's talked about that. So we had that fresh in our mind before we rewatched it. And if we do an episode like this again, we want to do the same way of maximizing our potential to like the movie on our second watch. And I'll say one thing that I definitely missed on the first time was the significance of his jacket. Not that it's so deep, but he's wearing the scorpion jacket. And towards the end, he does reference the fable, the Scorpion and the Frog. And I was a fucking idiot because I didn't catch that the first time. Folks who don't know the Aesop fable is, I'll try to tell this quickly. Basically, a scorpion is asking a frog, "Can I jump on your back to cross the river?" Right? Am I getting this right, Trenton? And frog says, like, "No, don't do this. You're gonna sting me." He's like, "I wouldn't sting. If I do that, you're gonna die. We'll all drown. Like, why would I do that?" And frog says, "Okay, jump on. I'll take you across the river." And of course, the scorpion stabs him. He says, "Why the hell did you do that?" It's like, "I can't help it. It's my nature." End of fable. These are very short things. And so having that in mind of like, this guy is someone who's aware he can't escape his nature and is embodying that with his jacket that he's wearing for most of the movie. But I also was trying to figure out if there's like, is he only wearing it when it's a game time? Because he specifically has another great denim jacket that like when he's going to go hang out with the woman and the kid. I don't know, we're not really doing a synopsis this time, folks. You've probably seen Drive, and apologize for that. We're not going to go too deep into it, but there's a neighbor who has a son that he starts spending time with. And when he's doing that, it's the only time he seems happy. Oddly, he seems happier with the kid than with Michelle Williams. I didn't really feel any sexual tension between them. I mean, at least like it didn't work for me. It was more, he's kind of playing father figure and seems to be enjoying that. It is sexual, but like it didn't work as chemistry for me. But he has his denim jacket he wears there. So like I'm not sure if there's like a calculated, I gotta go potentially kill somebody. So scorpion jacket time. Because he's also at one point just in the bar wearing this, and someone recognizes him and he tells him to fuck off or he's gonna smash.
Yeah, that's right.
Which is, in case we had any doubt that we don't like this guy, we have this scene in there.
Oh yeah, I think that was a really important scene, like for me, because I'm just gonna love Ryan Gosling no matter what.
Right.
Like, okay, yeah, I guess he's kind of a jerk.
Yeah, exactly. I think he's a jerk, and but he's also, I think there's a case for like, does he do the quote unquote right thing? Because it's not necessarily by the end about the right thing, it's about surviving. And he is trying to make sure that the Michelle Williams character is okay. But it's also, he's put in a position where it's like, how do I survive? More than anything, and how do I survive and keep them alive? It's not like he sacrifices himself for her. At least that was my take on it. All that to say, there is commentary about this is a guy who knows he has a history of violence, he has a cycle of it or something, or he at least has a dangerous tendency. And despite his best efforts, he knows that about himself. And that's what he ends up having to engage in by the end of the movie to do the deed. So I did like that commentary of knowing himself. At least that was my take on it in this viewing. Trenton, do you agree? Do you think that's what that's all about, or am I just reading way too much into it?
I agree with you. One thing I would say is I actually didn't like the whole scorpion thing that was so obvious.
It's very on the head, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially when he actually references it in a phone call later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I read some list or analysis a couple of years ago on probably Reddit or something that was talking about cliches in screenwriting and like
that's
scripts
a pretty big one
that people submit. And the scorpion and the frog fable, they're like, stop putting this in your script. And so I think that it's kind of overdone. Like it's kind of, I think probably with The Dark Knight, funny you mentioned that, Christopher Nolan, because the Joker is basically like the ultimate scorpion figure.
Yeah.
And
true.
like after that, it feels like anytime you try to evoke that, it's gonna fall short. So
I mean, it was in the Crying Game. It was in season 1 of Fargo, and I'm sure those are just like off the top of my head. I'm sure there's movies. There's got to be some film noirs in the 40s that.
Yeah, I will say I do own that jacket. I was gonna wear it today, but I'm not home, and I forgot it, and I was mad at myself. But
you're gonna have to send a photo of you with the jacket.
Yeah,
yes, please.
Before this episode airs. So, Megan, I want to hear your thoughts, but I teaser. There's a scene that I really hate in this movie. That like I remember I wrote note blank scene is still very stupid. It was a note that I wrote when it came up. So, and in case I haven't cleared yet, I don't think this movie still is not a movie that I particularly like. I think it's cool. I think it's well done. I don't have any problem with anybody liking it by any means, but it is not for me, and partially because I think there's other movies that do this better, but it's by no means a bad movie, except for the scene I'm going to talk about, which maybe I just misunderstood. But Megan, I want to hear your thoughts first.
The jacket in particular, I think that for me, the jacket is another like element of the movie where I think everything is so just particular. And I like in my like initial pitch, I kind of said like it's so particular in that and it's both a pro and a con for me of the movie. Like I agree with you, Seth. It's pretty cool that it's like so full on like in its own genre. And I think that nothing really misses a beat as to what the movie is and like is trying to be, which is like this like cool music video aesthetic film and like very aesthetically driven. So like to have like a shiny leather, or it wasn't leather, it was like a sateen
like a plush.
Yeah.
Is it like a bomber?
I believe so. Yeah, like he also wears driving gloves, we should say, like leather driving gloves that are kind of a big part of his getup. And I don't know. I think everything's just so particular that it somehow works. But I agree. It also just was the most bright thing in this movie. Actually, like
That's true.
I told Seth like this was the gloomiest LA movie I've ever seen in my life. I've never seen LA look so horrible. And I was just like shocked that they could make it look like that. So that's a testament to like how colorized I guess this film is, and like how everything is tinted in a way. And it's pretty cool. They had amazing scenes, I will say, like too, like scenery, and they got some really sick places and locations. That's what that's called in movies. And
You've worked on actual sets, Megan.
Exactly. Yeah, on location, I will say.
Yeah.
So that was like cool to see, but it was like everything's just so particular, so damn particular. So the jacket for me is like part of that.
So I think I'm gonna back up here and get into like another reason why I for a long didn't like this is and Trenton, you know this, if I'm on the verge about somebody and I hear anything bad about them, I'm talking a celebrity, creative person, it's very easy for me to just write off their whole work. And I heard a story about the director. I heard one of those already accusations of some racist changes he made in this movie. The Michelle Williams character is a Latina woman in the book. And he made a comment about wanting to change it to a white blonde woman so that she was more sympathetic, which is a really creepy Danish thing to say. A very odd comment. So that's already like, oh, I don't know about this guy. And then there was a story about people paid, I think it was for Neon Demon. He was going to do a Q&A after a showing at the New Beverly Theater, the one Tarantino owns. And people paid extra, to go and be there for the Q&A. After the movie ends, he announces that he's in a bidding war on eBay and won't start the Q&A until he finishes. And that went on for like 20 or 30 minutes of people just silently watching him bid on his phone. And that's the most stupid asshole thing I've ever heard. I was like, I can't imagine thinking these people would wait for that, but think that you're important enough to make everybody wait through that. So I heard that story, I was like, fuck this guy, I don't want to see his other movies. And I've tried, before I knew this, I tried like 20 minutes of Only God Forgives, and I just wasn't working for me. Which, Trenton, I don't think you're a fan of that one either, right?
No, and I wasn't a fan of Neon Demon either. Like anything after Drive pretty much fell short for me.
And I liked Bronson. I'll say that. I enjoy that movie quite a bit. And so obviously, I don't want to get too into like canceling the directors here. I haven't heard anything about sexual assault about him or anything that intense. But that was also enough for me to be like, I don't need to learn more about this guy. I don't need to get too deep in his other movies. So I'm going to talk real quick, if that's all right, about the scene that did not work for me. And again, maybe I just misunderstood. The scene when Ryan Gosling is going to go kill Ron Perlman, who's great in this movie. And quick side note, everyone's really good in this movie. Oscar Isaac's great in this movie. Albert Brooks playing against character is fantastic.
It's Oscar Isaac.
That's Oscar Isaac in it too. Yeah,
the dad. Oh my god.
Albert Brooks is a great, writer, director, actor, comedian. But I think most millennials probably know him as the voice of the dad in Finding Nemo, which is not a bad role. But if you're going from Nemo to this is the mafia guy who's killing Bryan Cranston with a razor, like that's cool. That's wild. I didn't see that coming.
He's also a voice for a lot of Simpsons characters.
Oh, was he really? I didn't know that. Yes, he's great. He's everywhere. But like, I don't think he's played anyone like this before, and I could be wrong. But everyone's really good in this. But the scene we're calling him Driver because folks, he doesn't have a name in the movie, in case that wasn't clear. He's this Hollywood stuntman, right? And he goes and he gets a mask that we saw him wear earlier for work, where he's got like the body double mask. But it's this long sequence where he goes and gets this mask, and he's wearing this mask when he kills Ron Perlman. And I don't know why he's bothering to wear the mask. Ron Perlman already knows who he is, and he's gonna kill him anyways. He's on the run already. And the mask looks really stupid on him. And I don't know if it's just like a visual, like this could work in. It's like
awesome.
You like that? Because like for me, this is just like very strange. Like, is this supposed to be funny? Is this just like a strange visual? Because to me, it wasn't quite as quirky as like a strange Lynchian visual or something. It just seemed it seemed tedious for us to watch him go to literally pick up the mask. Like we see him drive and pick it up and then drive back and wear it. And there's a lot of sequences of him just wearing it, looking at Perlman before he kills him. And for me, it just seemed very drawn out and stupid. But okay, Trenton's a fan. We'll get into that in a second. Megan, did this scene do anything for you? Did it work? Did it not a blimp on your radar? Because I'm fully willing to admit maybe I'm just the weird one here who's bothered by it.
It was pretty visually jarring, I would say. Like
sure.
that mask is quite disturbing. Mm-hmm. Obviously, but I think just visually jarring. I agree with you. It's also one of those like Hollywood like pretty expensive masks, I think, like
right. Latex probably.
A latex, yeah, full, and then a full neck as well. It's
yes.
not a like just a head or something like that. Yeah. So it looks quite insane. It literally looks like he put on like a second skin of like a human person onto his body. So I think that it was a choice. It was certainly the weirdest like outlandish thing in the movie, almost, despite all the gore, gory like violence. Even that was so like stylized almost that it kind of, the violence actually melded pretty seamlessly for me into the movie. But this like weird mask scene I think was just a nod to like a little bit of absurdity. It almost was like absurd to me, and which is funny because there's a lot of like crazy things that go on in this movie.
Yeah, this isn't a realistic movie, but the violence is pretty intense. It doesn't feel like gallows.
It's not fun.
It's not fun, but it's also like it's not Tarantino where there's just buckets. It's not an Italian horror movie where it's like an insane amount of blood, but it's more than most movies. Like the elevator scene sure goes on for a while and smashing the guy's head in. But it also, like, to me, I know this was a criticism it got, like people who did film critics didn't like the movie noted on not being too violent. I didn't think it was too violent. I mean, I think we've probably seen more violent movies.
And Reference probably was like, you think this is too violent? Look at Only God Forgives.
Yeah, exactly. See, that was too violent for me. I didn't feel the need to finish that one. But yeah, it didn't feel excessive to me. But like, the masking just for whatever reason, like it didn't look scary. It just looked dumb. And just I was offended that we had to watch him get it. But I don't know I think what you're saying makes sense. Yeah, what you're both saying makes sense as like reasons in the movie. I still stand by not liking the sequence.
That's fair. It was very like weird looking, but Trenton, please, we want to hear. You loved it apparently.
Yes.
But
please.
Part of the homework I gave myself for the podcast was reading the book, or I guess more of a novella that it's based on.
Folks work way too hard when they come on this podcast. We love it.
It was like a 3-hour audiobook. I just listened to it on my drive.
Okay.
Nice. But the interesting thing is, I don't know if I would really recommend the book. It's fine. Like if you're a diehard like me, then go ahead and read it. Sure. But one thing that I thought was interesting is the mask is totally not in the book. He like gets a haircut. He like gets his head buzzed, and that's his like disguise. And I think that's really important. Like any time that there's a very intentional change like that, which watching the movie that it is a very intentional change by the director,
right?
Or I guess potentially the screenwriter, but it makes me think that there is some meaning behind it, and I don't really know if I quite understand what that is, but I think in the book you see, this in the movie that it's somewhat about movie making, because he is a stunt driver for Hollywood movies, as well as a getaway driver. By the way, he does not have a name in the book either. He's referred to as the driver.
Is it told in the first person?
It is not. No,
interesting.
It just refers to him as the driver. The driver does this, or actually, not even the driver.
Just driver.
Just driver. His name is his driver, basically. And he goes and he gets his head buzzed before he goes and does his killings at the end. And I think that the mask is part of, because he gets the mask from a movie set. He gets it from like the costume.
Because don't we see him wear it for work earlier in the movie? Like he's...
Yes. So I think that there might be something about, I mean, maybe performance or like the connection between movies and real life. I don't really know what it's supposed to mean, or if Refn even knows. I agree with Megan. I think that it's very off-putting, like meant to be disturbing. It's like,
I mean, maybe you're supposed to have my pissed off reaction. That's what you wanted. Maybe Ron Perlman's just thought, fuck that.
Yeah, it just adds to like the unsettling aura or aesthetic of the movie.
Okay. Sure. Well, you mentioned that in the haircut he gets a buzz. I'm not sure this is what they're going for, but like I think you've seen Taxi Driver, Trenton. You know, he gets the mohawk before he goes on the killing spree, and that's a thing. Green Berets do apparently, or at least that was what they were referencing with it. So I don't know. That might be referencing a film cinema thing of like there's a physical change, and that means our protagonist is gonna kill people. It's gonna go do something dangerous. Because I think that's what also threw me off. It's not like he's wearing the mask when he confronts Albert Brooks, you know. It's just this one sequence. But if anybody has a theory, let us know.
One thing that's interesting is, I forget if I read this or heard this somewhere, that Refn says that he did not watch Thief before he made Drive. And so he claims that it was not an inspiration, which I'm skeptical. I mean, it's definitely possible. But there's so much in it, from the soundtrack to the aesthetic to the themes and the characters, that makes me think that that's not likely, but sure. But he does say that he watched The Driver as an influence, but Thief supposedly no.
And haven't seen any of his movies previous to Drive. I think you've seen most of them, Trent. Like, do they have a similar aesthetic? I mean, they're probably going to be clearly movies by Ren, but is there continuity there? Is there like the music and aesthetics like that?
So the music is pretty unique to Drive. There is like electronic music in other Refn movies, but it doesn't have that, you know, kind of synthy pop feeling to it. That's like kind of soothing almost.
Yeah.
One thing that's interesting though, that I saw in a documentary, I think his wife made this documentary while they were making Only God Forgives, and it's a really good insight into his life and like how he like balances his directing with his family and just like kind of his personal philosophy and things like that. And one thing that he mentions is that he is colorblind. And
what?
Yeah,
that's surprising for
I know, right?
Wow. His movies are.
But he said he attributes a lot of his style and uniqueness to the colorblindness because he needs so much contrast for himself to see the image clearly. And so you do see this in a lot of his movies. There is lots of dark or stark contrast between the light and the darkness.
Well, just like the scenes of like Ryan Gosling alone in his apartment. You know, that's almost completely dark for like he's got like a proto ring light or something, you know, and it looks really cool.
I love that shot.
Yeah, every still from this movie looks like you could buy it at Urban Outfitters 20 years ago, and hang it up in your dorm. No, but that is a great shot in all seriousness. But that's crazy. I did not know that about him. That's very cool that he's been able to power through that and be a visual artist. That's really unique.
Or maybe because of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think I've given my clear take on this movie, and I certainly have more things to say. But Megan, on first full view and with Trenton's commentary in mind, where do you land on this? Is it?
Absolutely. I mean, I feel the same, Seth. Like, this is not a bad movie. I think our hot take from it is like, of course, this is not a bad movie. It's also, what I came away from it was that it's visually stunning. Like, this movie is beautifully shot. I am a fan of things being very true to itself, I guess, and like, there's not a wrong tone for me throughout the whole thing almost. So like, it's pretty visually striking that way. I think for me, we didn't talk too much, but like pacing, this movie felt like 80% of the movie felt like it was sedated, like it was that slow for me. But and I know why it was done. I think the thing, like my biggest take is like I know why everything in this movie was done the way that it was, but it may just be like not for me. And I can appreciate its stylistic choices to be what it is, but it may just be like not for me, which is fine. And I think that it needs to live as what it is, for like it's an important movie to be like what it is. So I'm glad it exists. I don't want it off this planet or anything like that, but so it was a fun rewatch, certainly.
I'm really glad you reached out to us about this. I'm glad we watched that. And I think beyond Thief, one of the things I like about Thief is James Caan. You know a lot more about James Caan, like you've already said, and he's a lot more talkative. You don't really have this silent protagonist thing, but he's a lot more traditional. And I'm certainly fine with like a non-traditional protagonist. Like there was a lot of reviews compared The Driver to The Man with No Name and the Dollars trilogy, the Clint Eastwood, especially The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, where he doesn't talk much. When he does, it's a whisper, and he's squinting, but he's great in that. And I think just like for a movie that has I was describing this movie to my wife, and she was saying for like a movie that has like this type of movie that's a morally ambiguous thing, I want to have a more engaging protagonist. I want to have, and I think that's one of the reasons I keep coming back to 70s movies like The Long Goodbye. I want to have like Elliot Gould, who's very fun to watch and charismatic. Not that Ryan Gosling is not charismatic, but you don't know what's going on with him most of the movie. I generally, for parts of this movie, was wondering if he was stupid. I don't think he is by the end of it, but there's a few points where where I like when he just is taking so long to respond to somebody. It's like, wait, is he not well? And did I miss that? I don't think that's the case. I think he's calculated, and that's again nothing wrong with the movie. That's just a personal taste thing. One is not better. I like more talkative protagonists. I'm a talkative person, so easy link there, I guess.
Really quickly, the movie actually, the plot of this movie, have you guys seen Baby Driver?
Yeah.
And like the plot is so similar, and I know that Baby Driver, like specifically, one of the goals was to make it look like a music video, or like they shot it music video style. So talk about like a difference. They're very, very different movies, too. Obviously.
And that guy's not particularly talkative either. And he's maybe the weakest part of the movie. Because like Baby Driver is a really fun movie, but I don't really remember any quip the Baby Driver has. I remember John Hamm and Jamie Foxx, and I remember just like the chases being great, But I think the actor was fine. Trent, did you see Baby Driver?
I did. Have you seen the music video that
was the basis for it? If you didn't know this, Megan, Edgar Wright did in the 90s a music video that was basically this idea, always with the idea of doing a movie about this later. But I have not seen it. It's Noel Fielding's in the video, right, Trenton?
Yes. Okay. Yeah, Noel Fielding is also like one of my favorite people ever.
Oh, he's great.
But you can see in the music video, like a lot of the things, I think it's from like the first heist or something, that they steal a lot of the gags and stuff. And it's just a great music video. I think better than the whole movie. I would rather watch that music video for 2 hours.
Fair enough.
Well, I knew famously there was a connection to Baby Driver, and like it was supposed to be shot like a music video or something like that. So that must be it.
That's what it was.
And that's really interesting. I mean, like I said, like talk about aesthetic differences. I think these movies almost did like something similar, but in very, very different ways. So I just wanted to bring that up.
No, that's a great. I'm glad I wasn't even thinking of that. Even though I really enjoyed Baby Driver when it came out. I think there was kind of a collective. Well, this is the last time we can all watch Kevin Spacey in something.
That's right. For that timeline, for folks, that's when it was.
Yeah, right. Because like that stuff came out like a month or two after it was released in the theaters. Yeah,
literally.
Well, I mean, it came out years ago, but it was more official when it came out again.
Well, that kind of reminds me of another thing about the separating the art from the artist thing with Refn is I also think that I don't like Refn. I mean, based on the things that you said, I didn't know all of those things going into it. I think you told me about them, but there is in specific this interview that he did just very recently, and he's talking to the interviewer and about like his failures after Drive and how they have failed to hit critical success. And he doesn't really acknowledge it. Like, he sees it as everyone else is wrong. Like, I did what I wanted to do. This is great. And he places himself like at the top of filmmaking in like cinema history. So like when the interviewer is talking about like 2001 and Taxi Driver and like Citizen Kane, he's like, you forgot Drive and Only God. Like, these are the top 5 movies of all time. And you know, maybe it's a joke, maybe it's like part of his act, I don't know.
Yeah.
But I think it feels real. And so
I mean, based off this does form a picture of a person that the person shared about him. So
that detracted from it for me as well.
Well, I think this is a different interview. It was like a director and director interview, and William Brinkton, who did The Exorcist and French Connection, was talking to him, and in the middle of the interview, Nicholas casually referred to Only God Forgives as a masterpiece, and William Brinkton just started laughing. He's like, "You fucking serious? Like, you can't call your own movie a masterpiece, and you can't call that movie a masterpiece." And I don't think that interview went well for the rest of it. I think it got pretty hostile. But so I don't think he was joking. But who knows, maybe he makes a movie in the next couple of years that we all decide we got to see and we turn on. I don't know, maybe this is a well-made movie. This is a guy who knew what he was doing, and I do think in Neon Demon and Only God Forgives, they're much more extreme movies, and so I understand if you make a movie that is much more visually challenging because it's incredibly violent, of thinking, well, the critics are wrong or they're going to come around. Like, I'm a big David Cronenberg fan, who's already talking about how many people he's expecting to walk out at the premiere of his new movie. Because it's going to be a very violent, gross body horror thing, and but he's cool about that. He knows that. Versus Nicholas Friend, who we've been talking about this fucking guy all episode, I still can't say his name right, does not seem to be able to take that criticism well. So interesting. I'm really glad you mentioned that, because Trenton teased me with there's a thing he knew about him that he didn't think I was going to be able to find that's going to make me like him less. And I spent a lot of time Googling, but I did not come around that story. So, okay, I think we've beat this dead horse.
I know.
So what we're going to do now, folks, is we're all going to recommend a movie we did not initially like on our viewing. And this could be this level where we are of realize it's good now and we hate it at first, or a movie you generally want to rewatch and think is great. Anywhere like that, just a movie we realized we were wrong about. Trenton, as a guest, would you mind going first?
I'd love to. So the movie that I would pick is from a director who I love, and I at least like, if not love, I would say almost all of what he's made. I think that most directors, the first movie is like a mulligan, but a Carey Mulligan. But anyway, the movie I was going to say is The Master, because I watched it the first time. I was like, this is boring. I don't get it. I just didn't connect to it. And I feel like a lot of people that I've talked to either didn't like it on the first time or didn't give it a second chance and just thinks they don't like that movie. Yeah. Although, to be fair, a lot of people think it's a masterpiece, which after watching it a second time, I agree with. And I honestly cried during that movie the second time. I was like, this is so good. Yeah. And I think maybe I just was in the wrong mindset. I just wasn't paying attention, or maybe I just didn't have the right perspective, like the right context yet in my life, right, in terms of the kind of people that I had experienced, and like seeing maybe not a cult like in the movie, but people who have cult-like or charismatic personalities that are able to manipulate other people, and just like seeing the psychology of it. It just felt like a very, maybe not real, but just in a literary way, like a very nuanced and substantive set of characters and relationships.
Yeah, I love that movie. I fully understand someone not getting that at first, because it's and I don't know if you knew this, Trenton, but it's about Scientology specifically. And I think I knew a lot of people who didn't know that when they first watched it, and like, understandable. Like you can't to directly advertise I'm taking down Scientology in Hollywood, but like a lot of people kind of knew that it was. So like if you watch that with that context, and if you like, I myself was kind of in a cult, so I relate well to it. And I know those type of people who are really desperate to find something. I've been there, and I know those charismatic people and the strange relationships they form. But I really appreciate you for saying that about like, yeah, you have to, you maybe not have to, but that context clicked for you on a second viewing. And I think it's a really powerful movie, and that often happens where one of the reasons we're doing this, we might just be in a different place the next time we watch something that just works for us. Cool. Great pick. Megan.
I also cried during Drive.
Did you really?
Really?
Sorry. Okay, wait, we got to talk about this.
I know. I'm Can we get a scene?
I think probably like maybe like during one of the, I mean, definitely when the soundtrack was going, but to give some context, I will cry during a lot of movies. Like it could even not be a sad movie, just like,
sure.
Like, oh,
cinema
man,
just works
so
for
good.
Okay. But it wasn't even like a sad scene, it was just like a beautiful shot or something? Or...
Yeah, I was just like, This is such a good movie.
That's amazing. Okay.
I'm a commercial crier. I'll cry at commercials. Yeah? Okay. So or like music really gets me.
Commercials or something.
Yeah,
or,
absolutely. Yeah. Budweiser.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just all the beer is so beautiful.
Yeah.
What a beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you for confessions with the film optimist.
Yes.
Not to shame. That's very cool. I appreciate someone who can appreciate art on that deep of a level. So thank you for sharing. Megan, what is your pick?
Sure. So, friends, I do have to confess that I got the assignment wrong. And I'm going to flip it. So I'm picking a movie that I was jazzed about, and then kind of like in thinking about it, I've kind of detracted a little bit, and I'll explain why. So
no, that's actually, a great way to, that was the other thing we were talking about, Megan. So that might be, I don't know if you got it wrong, but I just didn't ever clarify with you.
Okay, well, I and it's kind of related to Drive to me. So Drive brought up me thinking about the movie The Place Beyond the Pines with Ryan Gosling, which and I think it was actually near the same time, maybe 2012. Sorry, I'm like
I think this came out Quick Succession. I think there was like he was doing these
and we talked about it, and Ryan was switching genres, I would say, at this time. Like he was definitely getting into being a little bit more of an indie darling and trying new things, I guess. And so at that time, just being a fan, like we all were, I wanted to see as much as I could from him. And I think I knew the director as well. I'm blanking on the director for Place Beyond the Pines. But yeah, I knew I like wanted to see it basically. And I think I like dragged my family into it as well. And they were not as like filmy as me at the time. And I was just young and trying to get as much like good, exciting film coming my way as I could as a kid. But I think in thinking about it, it reminded me of this movie because it's just it's like very, very slow, methodical. This one had a lot more like, chronology. The biggest like take on Place Beyond the Pines is that it had a chronological story that follows like multi-generational story, I guess I should say, that links together things, and like it's about 3 storylines basically, and very beautifully shot as well as Drive. But I think like in thinking about it, and Drive 2 is just like beautiful aesthetics, and like well shot movies do not a perfect movie for me make. And like that's the biggest like takeaway that I've had to come to, is just especially in thinking about like films that have really like blown me away recently. It's kind of a different package that I'm particularly looking for. And while Place Beyond the Pines, of course, it was still a good movie to me, but I think it was a little like the characters weren't fully realized, and it was very much more like, I think they went into it thinking like, this is so like fucking cool, we have like chronological stories like linking together and stuff like that, but it's almost like it just fell a little flat for me. It made me realize like just about tonally what I like in movies has like shifted, I guess, especially as like when you're a young kid, like absorbing everything from film that you can, and how it just changes. And I think that's where I landed with that.
Very cool. If everybody has an answer to both, we could also do both. But if you don't have one, Megan, no worries. But
I couldn't quite think of
no worries. Just keep going. Derek Sinafrance was the director who did Blue Valentine, also Ryan Gosling.
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Very cool. And yeah, I think that's fun to be learning more about our own tastes.
Yeah, that's like kind of what it is.
Well, we've talked about Michael Mann quite a bit already, but Heat was the pick for me of a movie that, for the question trying to answer, the movie that I, for whatever reason, did not like when I first watched. And the reason was I was 12. And Heat is a very good movie, but Heat is a very long crime epic saga thing that has some realism to it, has some great acting, and is pretty boring if you're 12. And but I rewatched that recently and I realized this is fucking great. And that's actually what got me to watch Thief, is realize like actually Michael Mann's really cool. And I rewatched Collateral and I loved that movie too, which I was like, for a while I thought Collateral was the only Michael Mann movie I liked, and I was like, no, that's not true. This guy's been making great movies for quite a while. It's one of the only, maybe my least favorite trope in any superhero or military or crime thing is the wife who doesn't understand that the husband has to work. And this movie has an interesting take on that, because Al Pacino's the cop in this one, and he's not in homicide, he's in theft, basically. And the guys he's chasing are not murderers. They're armed robbers. And so there is kind of a little bit of a different, like, you don't actually have to be working this hard and missing every meal. You're working on catching thieves. The town is not in danger, the Joker's not on the loose or something. And that felt like a much more realistic version of that dynamic. And both of them both Al Pacino, the wife character, have already been divorced twice or something. And it just felt like a much more honest, interesting version of that relationship than I had seen in a movie in a long time. And that's one of the reasons it really worked for me. And it's stylistically fantastic and everyone's good at it. So hot take, Heat is good. Okay, well, folks, I think we did it. Trenton, thank you so much for joining us for this episode. Anywhere that do you want people to follow you on the grams, get any hot film takes? Anonymous, they don't have to.
I don't really post anything.
Okay, fair enough.
I'm like under the radar, like the driver. I'm just
no, there you go. Perfect.
That's right.
Off the grid.
Thank you so much for coming on. And if you have another discussion like this, or if we have any listeners want to recommend a movie, we might be able to do something like this, either just watching it ourselves. Well, if you want to send us an email for a movie that we've mentioned not liking and you think we're wrong, let us know.
I really like the prompt today for our recommendations. So if folks have any movies that they watched that they have a different opinion on, that's always really fun. So let us know. We'd love to hear about that.
Yes. All right. And that's all for now, folks.